Hey everyone, Banana156 here with another video. Remember to like, comment, dislike, subscribe, do all that stuff. I do read all comments, so make sure to leave one. This video is the part 2 to the fascist video. So yeah, we're just going to be going over the last 7 points of fascism by Umberto Eco. And so yeah, so if you want to see more fascist videos, make sure to leave a like. I know I originally said that this would be a 3-part series, but I'm thinking about extending it because I know for sure the next video will be why fascism fails, but then I might go over different types of fascism, and yeah, so this series could extend for as long as it wants, but or as long as you guys want it to keep going, and as long as I keep making them. But yeah, so let's get into the last 7 of the 14 points. So the first one, I'll just read them out as we go. So the enemy is both strong and weak. So this is very common, and especially in the Republican Party today. A good example of it is like immigrants are both hyper working and like very good at jobs, and they're going to take all your jobs, but they're also lazy, and they live off welfare, and they're useless, and they're taking all your tax money. Most Republicans stress this a lot, and they use this as a common argument for the border wall and things like that. Another example is like SJWs are like, oh, weak little snowflakes, and they're stupid, but they're also Marxist super soldiers, and they're going to overthrow the government or something like that. Like, they always stress these points because they want you to be scared of the people. They want you to be scared of like immigrants and SJWs, but they want you to also think that they want you to be scared of them, like, so you can get rid of them, but also like make you think that they're not strong, that they're easy to get rid of. So yeah, that point is very common today, and it is used as a talking point for almost every Republican now, especially for immigration. So pacifism is trafficking with the enemy. For fascism, there is no struggle for life, but rather life is lived for struggle. So like, you have to be constantly fighting. You can't just be neutral. You have to pick a side. You have to be constantly fighting against something. There's no just peacefulness in a fascist regime. There's always an outgroup. There's always something that you need to be fighting against, and you can't be neutral, because if you're neutral, you are supporting them. You can't just not do anything. You have to be actively going against the thing that is the outgroup, or the thing that they're fighting against. That I can't really think of any examples right now, but you have to be constantly fighting with the fascists against the outgroup, always. So the next point is contempt for the weak. Elitism is a typical aspect of any reactionary ideology. Yeah, this is common in conservatism as well, because now I like to consider conservatism like baby fascism. I don't think it is fascism, but it's like a less extreme version of it. But like the founding father of modern day conservatism, which I will do a video on at some point, is Edmund Burke, and his philosophy was that society is meant to be in a hierarchical state, and that the reason that it failed during the French Revolution was because the hierarchy was determined the wrong way. He thought that the hierarchy should not be determined by a bloodline, but should instead be determined by a free market. So like, the people that rise to the top are meant to be at the top, and the people that fall to the bottom are meant to be at the bottom. So everyone is there because they are meant to be there, and that human beings are not equal. That people are better, and if they're better, they will rise to the top. So that is the foundation of conservative thought, and that leads to a contempt for the weak. You see a lot of Republicans do this with even some Democrats, with like not putting in the $15 minimum wage, and Christine Sinema's doing the thumbs down. I would put that as contempt for the poor, and the poor is the weak. Or their amazing voter restriction laws, specifically targeting minorities and poor people. That's contempt for the weak, and they don't want them to have any power. That's contempt for them. Other examples is undermining social programs that would give poor people more more opportunities and more chances and just a better living situation. Like affirmative action, a lot of them call affirmative action racist towards white people when it's not. It's a band-aid on a gaping wound of systemic racism that's been going on for years. But they don't want to recognize systemic racism. That's what they do. They don't care about the weak. In fact, they hate the weak, and they want to exterminate the weak. Like, they don't want any immigrants in this country. That's the weak. They want to get them out. Another example of contempt for the weak is like wanting to genocide the Palestinians if you're Israel. The Palestinians were there first. You come in, take all of their land, and they are substantially weaker than you because Israel has the power of the U.S. government behind them. And Israel is slowly genociding the Palestinians. That's an example of contempt for the weak. And most fascist things have some form of contempt for the weak, and even a lot of conservative governments. I would argue that Israel is a fascist government. Another example of contempt for the weak is China genociding the Uyghur Muslims. I would consider them fascist. I would consider the Republican Party fascist, but America is not fascist yet. So the next point is everybody is educated to become a hero. In an fascist ideology, heroism is the norm. This is a cult of heroism, and it is linked to the cult of death. So this is incredibly common, and it is pretty prevalent in like military propaganda. So like you're taught to want to fight for your country and that you want to die for your country. You want to die for a cause greater than yours. You want to, it's like the cult of death. Like in Nazi Germany, they taught everyone that they have to go into war and they want to die for their country. Like that's their goal. They want to die. They want to be the martyr for their country. This is actually somewhat prevalent. This is prevalent quite a bit in like tanky ideology. Like you hear a lot of people like talking about a revolution and then being like with their AK-47 shooting down a bunch of capitalist pigs and either surviving and being a hero or dying for the greater for moving the revolution forward. So it's pretty common, and I would consider tankies fascist, as you've seen in the video uploaded a few months ago. But it's really prevalent in how people in the education, like you want to die for your country, you want to do this for your country, you want to fight. You want to be a hero for your country. You want to push this country forward, and you want to fight for them. And this is very common in like patriotic education, like the 1776 Foundation, or just 1776 Commission. They wanted kids to be as unmindedly propagandists as possible, and this goes back to other points too. You can't have critical thinking in a fascist state because you can't allow people to think for themselves and realize that, hey, I don't want to die for my country. I don't want to die, because that's what it would lead to. You need people to be mindlessly patriotic and mindlessly want to fight and die for their country. That is the whole point of a fascist regime, because fascism is inherently against reality. So you can't have people thinking critically or the whole thing falls apart. And I will go more in depth on different reasons as to why in the next video. But let's keep going with these points. So machismo, or God, I can't say it. Machismo and weaponry. Machismo implies both disdain for women and intolerance and condemnation for unstandard sexual habits, from chastity to homosexuality. This is very common in almost every, not even fascist regime, just conservative regime. Most Christian conservatives hate homosexuality. Christianity as a whole is against homosexuality or any LGBTQ plus thing. That's why the official stance of the Republican Party is against everything LGBT. So yeah, like in Nazi Germany, they were very against it. They didn't allow it whatsoever. In China, they don't allow it whatsoever. They actually, well, recently for me, they just did a huge crackdown of all LGBT social media accounts. This video is coming out in like November, so it will be less recent because I'm recording this in July. But yeah, so earlier this year, they had a huge crackdown on all LGBT social media accounts, deleting them all from the WeChat app. That's like their main social media in China. But Israel's another example of a fascist country doing this. They don't want anything different than the norm, because difference is scary. Like, back to a previous point in the last video, fear of difference. Difference is always scary to them because they are scared of change, and they are scared of losing power because the next option may be better. So if it leads back to that, all the points are interconnected somehow. And now for the disdain for women. That is like not allowing women to vote, or thinking that, or going to traditional gender norms, and not allowing women to have very much of a role in society other than just giving birth and taking care of children. That's what they want the only role for women to be. That's what most conservatives, or conservatives with air quotes, want today. They want to go back to the traditional gender roles of, having their wife be barefoot and pregnant all the time. That's what they want. That's the main thing, and most fascist or strict authoritarian regimes have something like that enforced. They have some traditional gender norms of some kind. But yeah, and if you hear something weird in the background, that's just because it's raining outside. I just wanted to mention that because it just started raining as I was recording. But yeah, let's get on to the next point. So selective populism. There is, in our future, a TV or internet populism in which the emotional response of a selected group of citizens can be presented as the accepted voice of the people. Just basically Fox News and the alt-right pipeline on YouTube. So, like, Tucker Carlson in his show presents some topic, like, say, transgender people going in different bathrooms, and then he makes you scared of it, and then comes up with like all these people these selective people that are scared of it, and then they control what the Fox News people think, because the Fox News people are slowly being brainwashed into these ideologies, and they use populism as, they use the elites as like the people who perpetrate it. They want you to think that the elites are doing this to you. That's what populism is. But they want you to think that, but in reality, they are the elites. Because Tucker Carlson and Fox News is funded by a ton of oil billionaires, and they want to make all the money possible and keep you in line. And if you speak against it, you will be held as like some revolutionary or some anti-American, because they want you to think that the majority of the people think the way that you do, that transgender people going into different bathrooms is scary and bad, and they shouldn't be allowed to do it. And this is the same thing that earlier that Michael Knowles, in my Michael Knowles video, talked about how everyone thinks this way. It's just that they're too scared to admit that they're racist, or they're too scared to admit it. That's what it kind of is, because they make you think that everyone thinks this way. They're just too scared to admit that they're racist. That's what they want you to think, and they want you to really get you thinking that this is how most people are. They're just too scared to admit it, and you have to be the one to admit it. So yeah, and they want to control all TV and media consumption. Like, China has basically achieved this in China. They've and like how they wanted Fox News to originally be run out of the White House. That's an example of, controlling the media to brainwash people. So now this is the last and final point. Fascism speaks newspeak. All the Nazi and fascist school books made use of an impoverished vocabulary and an elementary syntax in order to limit the instruments of complex and critical reasoning. So they don't want they use an impoverished vocabulary. They don't use very many big words. It's because they don't want you knowing what they mean. They don't want you knowing what a neo-Marxist is. They don't want you knowing what a socialist is. They don't want you knowing what communism is. They don't want you knowing any of this. Because if you figure out what these mean, you will understand that, hey, these aren't bad. These are good. Or they don't want you knowing what liberalism means. They don't want you knowing what capitalism means, even though it's the current system. Because if you understand capitalism, you'll understand its shortcomings. They don't want you understanding regulations. They don't want you understanding anything. They want you to be they want you to know as little as possible, so they can tell you whatever they want to, and you'll believe it. And this is what most of them do. Most of them mischaracterize things to incredible amounts, like Jordan Peterson coming up with the term postmodern neo-Marxist, when Marx himself was a modernist, and Marxism is a modernist ideology. It's not postmodernist. There's nothing to do with it, because they want to mischaracterize things as much as possible and get you to not understand them as much as possible, and then eventually just only use them as words to instill fear. Because once you understand these terms, you can start critically thinking about them, you can start contemplating them and doing some reflection and introspection, and then if you are a somewhat intelligent individual, you will come up with, most of these terms aren't bad. Most of these terms are actually good. Like, because I hate to say it, or I don't hate to say it because it's true, reality has a liberal bias. That's why most college-educated voters become Democrats or become leftists, because reality is biased towards the left. That's just how it is. So they don't want that to happen. So how do you make it not happen? You don't tell them what the terms mean. You just don't tell them anything. But yeah, the main point of fascism. We're done with the points now. I just want to wrap up. But the main point of fascism is to limit critical thinking, and reflection as much as possible, so people can't discover how wrong the ideology is and how bad it is for everyone involved besides the elites. They don't want you knowing how good things could be or what could change if you followed a different ideology. They don't want you to know that. They want you to just be a pawn in their endless war machine. They want you to just do what you're told. They don't want you having any thoughts of your own. They just want to make as much money, and, well, not all fascist regimes. Some of them have a higher, like Nazism wasn't as geared towards making money. They are more geared towards other things. But they have a specific set of goals, like ruling the world or something like that, and they want you to just be a pawn in that, and they don't want you actually thinking about what's going on. So yeah, that's the main point of fascism. It's very dangerous, and it is very easy for some people to be radicalized. Like, normally, just like, I would say a lot of people that were normal people back like 10, 20 years, they may be fascist now. They may be QAnon people. And a lot of people are easily susceptible to propaganda, and fascism is a great tool. Or not, fascists use propaganda extensively, and it's very easy for some people to get radicalized. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Expect the next fascist video, not next week, but the week after. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for the recent support on the videos, and yeah, I will see you